Hey guys, welcome to today's video where we'll be previewing the Syracuse Orange. Last year I predicted them to go 7-5 with a 3-5 conference record, and they actually went 6-6 with a 2-6 conference record, so I was fairly pleased with my prediction. Unfortunately, last season ended with Dino Babers leaving the Orange program, and you bring in head coach Fran Brown, who was the defensive backs coach at the University of Georgia, which is a very interesting hire. You know, some of the Georgia assistants that have left the program have had some interesting tenures. Obviously, the most notable ones being Mel Tucker, who ended up being fired from Michigan State, and then Sam Pittman, who's still at Arkansas, who's had some peaks and valleys in his time. You know, it's a hard place to win at Arkansas, being in the SEC. And in the SEC West prior to Texas and Oklahoma being added. But he did have some bright spots with KJ Jefferson and that team that he had built, you know, upsetting Texas before they had actually joined the conference. But looking at Fran Brown, you know, he's a defensive backs guy, and really he's looking to build this team on defense, which is going to be really interesting this season, especially because the biggest name being added to the Syracuse football program beyond Fran Brown himself is Kyle McCord, the quarterback that transfers in from Ohio State. But before I get into that, let's get into the departures from this past offseason. Wide receiver Damian Alford leaves, linebacker Leon Lowry, offensive tackle Joe Moore, Jaden Bass, running back Jawan Price, cornerback Jeremiah Wilson, and defensive lineman Kevin Darton. Leon Lowry, that's a big loss, as well as Damian Alford, two big pieces from the offensive and defensive side. But, you know, you had a lot of interesting transfers in on both sides of the ball that should be able to make up for what you lost there. With the arrivals, you get guard Joshua Miller. Obviously, I said earlier, Kyle McCord, which is the biggest name in your transferring in group. Edge Fidel Diggs, wide receiver Jackson Meeks, and Zeed Haynes, who I think a lot of people are really excited about. Cornerback Marcus Washington, Clarence Lewis, and Deuce Chestnut. They're also going to be the core of that secondary this season, with Fran Brown obviously having a huge part in the defensive back technique and how the coverage is designed for the Syracuse defense. But also, on the offensive side, there's a lot of excitement around Kyle McCord and Oronde Gadsden playing together, because Oronde Gadsden is definitely the best tight end in the ACC. And although he had a bit of a disappointing season last year compared to the year before, I still think that he's going to be an absolute weapon for the Orange this year. You had the third worst offense last year, but you definitely are bringing in a lot of talent that makes people excited about how the Orange are going to move the football and score a lot of points. My main concern for you offensively, though, is your running back. You have LaQuint Allen, who was a 1,000-yard rusher last year, but there isn't really anybody behind him. It's very young guys who are inexperienced, and I would be a little bit worried that if Allen got hurt, you don't really have anybody behind him that you can rely on, and you might be throwing a lot of passes throughout games if he were to go down. So definitely look out for that. So strengths, quarterback, obviously, tight end, linebackers, secondary, and then weaknesses, running back and defensive line. The defensive line for Syracuse was also not very productive last year, so looking to improve on that this year. But let's go ahead and get into the schedule. You start off week 1 against the Ohio Bobcats. I think your talent, obviously compared to them, is going to be so much better. You're at home in the Carrier Dome, you get the win. Then you take on Georgia Tech. This will be an early indicator on how well Syracuse season is going to go. I don't think it's going to be a must-win game for you to get to a bowl game or even do well, but if you can stay in this game long enough to have a chance to win it at the end, it'll definitely be good signs for the Orange going throughout the year. That being said, I think Haynes King, Jamal Haynes, and Eric Singleton Jr. do just enough to get the win against you in the Carrier Dome, but it will be a really exciting game. I think this is a sleeper game that will be really exciting to watch. Then you have your bye week, and you take on Stanford at home. Stanford's going to be one of the worst teams in the ACC and the Power 4. Don't even worry about this game. You'll get the win. And then you take on Holy Cross, another opponent that you should easily take care of. No need to worry about this game. It's Holy Cross. And then you have a weekday game trip to UNLV. And that kind of scares me because UNLV has had some decent teams for a Group of 5 team. And it's a weekday game and you're on the road. That's a really far way to go on a short week. And I have to give you the loss. I definitely could see you winning this game, but with all the circumstances surrounding it, first-year head coach, even though Kyle McCord is a phenomenal quarterback for you to have on your team, he is in his first year at Syracuse. It just doesn't bode well for me. I get bad feelings from this game. I have you down for a loss. And then you go on the road at NC State, a really tough place to win. They have a lot of excitement around Grayson McCall there. Casey Concepcion's coming back. Wesley Grimes and Noah Rogers are there with him at wideout. They're going to have a really capable defense with Tony Gibson still at the helm, even with the loss of Peyton Wilson from last year. They still have Davin Van, who is a wrecking ball on the defensive line. They've got a really good roster. I have you down for a loss against the Wolfpack. Then you have your bye week, and you go on the road at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was probably the most disappointing team from my predictions. I had them going 9-3, and they went 3-9. And obviously, they were looking to improve on that, but although I think they'll be minimally improved, it won't be enough to get the win against you. I'll have you down for a win against the Panthers. You take on Virginia Tech at home. Virginia Tech is a team that is looking to make the ACC championship game. They have a lot of returning talent. They returned 20 of their 22 starters from last year's team. They are a very good football team this year, but I think this is going to be your statement win for this season, where you upset the Hokies in the Carrier Dome, and you show that Fran Brown was the right hire and Kyle McCord is the right quarterback to have at this moment. And you upset the Hokies. You then go on the road at Boston College after that big emotional win against Virginia Tech, and Bill O'Brien with Thomas Castellanos and the offensive game plan that he will have drawn up for him upsets you. I think you take a loss at Boston College. And then you follow that up with a road game at Cal, and a really far way to go for the Orange. And again, I think you take the loss. Then you follow it up with a home game against UConn. UConn isn't expected to be anything special this year. I think you beat them easily. And then you finish off the year against Miami. Miami's going to have a lot of talent with Cam Ward and all the receivers that they have. Their defensive line is also going to be very, very good. One of the top 3 defensive lines in the conference, and probably top 10 in the nation, if I'm being honest. But all that will be too much for the Orange to overcome, and I think you take a loss to the Hurricanes. So I have you at a 6-6 record with a 3-5 conference record, which is a really decent first year for Fran Brown at Syracuse, and I think they'll be a contender in the ACC in years to come. But I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you in the next one.